Many know him as the Knight of Nihilus or the Lord of the First. But during the days of the Great Crusade, he was often called the Monster Slayer of Caliban. The Hive Mind is about to discover why. As though materializing from the shadows came the lion. Fealty glowed like a beacon amidst the gloom. The Emperor's shield thrummed with power. A band of Inner Circle companions advanced in an honor guard at the Primarch's side. The very sight of him, even veiled by driving rain and phosphorescent mist, was enough to make Kahariel's twin hearts pound. He almost forgot to keep firing as he witnessed the lion charging the brood of Carnifexes with fealty swinging. The Primarch caught the blow of a titanic talon against the Emperor's shield. The Screamer Killer that had struck him reeled back as the converted force pulse burst from the shield in an expanding shockwave of rainwater and tattered mist. Before the huge alien could rally, the lion was inside its guard with fluid swiftness, driving fealty point first through the Screamer Killer's eye. Jonson gave his blade a twist and a wrench, ripping it free. His victim toppled backwards and crashed down with ichor jetting from its ruined face. Another of the Screamer Killers ploughed into the midst of the Inner Circle companions. Its sweeping blade limbs caught one warrior and hurled him through a wall. A vomited blast of bioplasma incinerated another. Yet the Battle Brothers' sacrifices allowed their fellows to encircle the beast and take their blades to it. Bellowing, the third Screamer Killer rushed the lion, seeking to enfold him in a lethal embrace. The Primarch stepped back, deftly parrying with his blade and blocking with his shield, drawing the monster into the crossfire of his warriors and their armoured support. The resultant barrage annihilated the Carnifex, the lion leaping over the glowing ruin of its carcass to lunge towards his true prey. Now, for several seconds, Brother Kahariel truly did forget to fire his bolt carbine as he watched the lion and the Hive Tyrant duel. Blade and shield met slashing bone sword and coiling lash whip again and again. Even as the battle raged around the knight and his monstrous foe, it seemed to Kahariel as though it faded, as if lost beneath the shadowed boughs of some ghostly primordial forest. The screams of beasts and the boom of gunfire sounded hollow in the infiltrator's ears. His own body felt momentarily distant, as though he were a stranger watching himself fight from afar. Only the lion's jewel appeared real and clear to him, lit by the whirling mists like some scene from myth. With shocking suddenness, the Primarch hacked off his foe's sword arm, and the battle leapt back into focus for Kahariel. The Hive Tyrant shrieked and coiled its lash whip around Jonson's neck. Kahariel cried out in horror at the sight of the Primarch's blood mingling with the rain that sluiced down his ornate chestplate. Yet the lion seemed not to notice. Instead, he smashed his shield into the tyrant's chest, shattering chitin, pulping organs, causing the monster to reel. Spinning fealty, the lion sliced the blade through the lash whip, cutting it in two like a snapped tendon, before bringing the blade back and lopping the Hive Tyrant's head off. The monstrous alien stayed standing for several heartbeats, ichor jetting from the stump of its neck. Then it crumpled, just so much butchered meat in the rain. The effect of its death upon the mauled Tyranids was electric and immediate. The impetus of their onslaught faltered. Creatures screeched and howled, snapping at their fellows or rising into the air with panicked flurries of wing beats. Kahariel's spirit soared as the lion turned back to his warriors and raised fealty high.
Into them, my sons! Drive back this monstrous swarm, for the Emperor!
With that, the Primarch turned and, bloodied but unbowed, plunged into the wavering Tyranids. Chanting litanies of loyalty and hatred, the Dark Angels followed their Genesire into the fray, and Kahariel was amongst them, bolt carbine blazing as the lion led him and his battle brothers onward to victory. At times like this, I think it's important to just take a beat and think about how awesome Warhammer 40k lore is right now. That was Lionel Jonson fighting against the Tyranids. It was in fact the first account we've ever had of a Primarch fighting against Tyranids in hand-to-hand combat. Hopefully it's the first of many. However, I didn't just go through that lore because it's cool, but because it connects to two very large plot points in Warhammer 40k right now. Firstly, it demonstrates one of the things Lionel Jonson is doing in Imperium Nihilus. So in that scene, it's actually Master Lazarus who identifies the Hive Tyrant, and he tells the Dark Angels to pull back so that the Beast Slayer can commence strike. And as you see, Lionel Jonson appears from the shadows and strikes against the Hive Tyrant. And this is a big part of what Lionel Jonson is doing in the wider Imperium. So he can appear from the shadows because of his mysterious forest walking ability. He is able to part the veil seemingly at will and step through into a mysterious realm that resembles the long-lost forests of ancient Caliban. By walking these forest paths, the lion is able to traverse great distances, and often as he travels through this mirror Caliban, he ends up exactly where he needs to be. Sometimes he'll come out of the shadows to find his successor chapter in their darkest hour, and the lion will lead them to victory. Or perhaps he'll stumble upon a Chaos Champion or Xenos Commander, who he will challenge to a duel ending a conflict before it has properly begun. This is the lion's favourite pastime. Occasionally he'll take a small band with him, like the Inner Circle companions. He leaves the rock and he ends up just where he needs to be to defeat some enemy of the Emperor. The Inner Circle companions are, as I think most people expected, hinted to be members of the Risen. These are ancient Dark Angels from the times of the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, who fought against the Lion during the destruction of Caliban. However, these sons of the Lion never turned their back on the Emperor. Instead, they were deceived by the arch-traitor Luther, and so the Lion has taken it upon himself to forgive his sons where necessary. However, he does hunt for those sons who did turn their backs on the Imperium, and despite his questing throughout Imperium Nihilus, he is desperately hunting for Luther and will deliver justice to his old friend. So within one of his private chambers within the rock, that's a secret to most Dark Angels, he does hold private meetings with senior Dark Angels such as Azrael, Ezekiel and Belial. However, sometimes these masters hear the lion talking to somebody before they enter the room, and when they go in, there's nobody inside. It appears that the lion is communicating with somebody. It could be one of the Watchers in the Dark, maybe, but the lion would have no reason to hide this from the masters. So who the lion is communicating with, we don't know. This pulls me towards Lionel Jonson, Son of the Forest, when the lion discovers an old king. The Old King is clearly some sort of warp manifestation of the Emperor, and it shows 3 items to the lion: a candelabra, a spear or lance covered in blood, and a chalice. There are many theories as to what these symbols mean for the lion and what the Emperor wants him to do. The most likely for me is that the candelabra represents the Astronomicon, the spear represents Leman Russ, and the chalice represents the Blood Angels. As well as defeating Luther and redeeming his chapter, I think the lion must find Leman Russ, protect the Blood Angels, and somehow the lion's job will be connected to the Astronomicon. But those are just my theories. I'll be interested to see what you guys think. The other reason I think this passage is fascinating is because the Hive Mind has just discovered that there is a second Primarch. So to explain why this is such a big deal, we're going to take a look at another book called Leviathan. And in this novel, there's an apothecary biologist. This is basically an apothecary who specializes in Xenos and tries to find out their weaknesses. The biologist in this novel has 2 captured specimens. The specimens are very small Tyranids. They're basically parasites that sit on the back of larger Tyranids. And in this scene, he goes to examine the Xenos. Votis studied his captives. Even though they were small and imprisoned, they triggered a powerful wave of revulsion in him. The chamber was lit by fierce strip lumens that revealed every grotesque detail. Votis had a huge respect for predators. Many of the specimens in his laboratorium were far more impressive in a scientific capacity than the humans he was sworn to protect. But when he looked at the 2 symbionts, he felt only disgust. He removed his gauntlets and put his hands into the holes on the side of the casket, sliding his fingers into gloves that hung inside the box. The specimen attacked instantly, attempting to bite into his hand, but failing to puncture the thick gloves. As he gripped the symbiont tighter, an image flickered across his thoughts. It was so vivid, he grunted in surprise. He saw a command chamber, wreathed in perfumed smoke. The walls were draped in banners, and the air was thrumming with the power of plasma drives. There was a single colossal figure in the room, hunched over a stone table, poring over charts and scrolls. Even though the warrior was hazed by smoke, he was unmistakable. It was Roboute Guilliman, Lord of Ultramar and Lord Commander of the entire Imperium. Voltis could name every piece of his Primarch's armour and weaponry, from the armour of fate with its layers of intricate filigree to the huge sword once carried by the Emperor himself. It should have been a glorious sight, but rather than feeling elated, Voltis felt a wave of dread. There was something else in the chamber, something that should not be there, something that radiated insatiable hunger. Dust billowed around the feet of the statues, and shadows lurched as it approached, and somehow the Lord Commander was oblivious. Whatever the threat was, Guilliman was blind to it, too focused on his maps and books to realize that he was in danger. Then the command chamber was gone, and Voltis saw the laboratorium again. This scene is absolutely wild, and it looks like we might have a glimpse into the plans of the Hive Mind, at least for the Fourth Tyrannic War. Guilliman is not actually in danger in this scene. Voltis is no telepath, and there is no monster about to pounce on his Primarch from the shadows, just yet. Instead, what's happening in this scene is that the Xenos are trying to beguile Voltis. Specifically, it is the Harbinger. The Harbinger in Leviathan is a Norn emissary, a colossal minion of the Norn Queen, created for a specific purpose. In this instance, it's assassination. It is true that the invading Hive fleets are on a course that would take them to Terra. However, I don't think this is their true objective, for they probably know that Terra is going to be too well defended. I think that once the Hive Mind discovered the existence of Roboute Guilliman, it chose a new mission objective for its Hive fleets, and that mission objective was the death of the Lord of Ultramar. For the Hive Mind will have realised that the death of Roboute Guilliman would be a devastating loss for the Imperium. Out of all of the Emperor's servants, Guilliman's supermind would be one of the best assets we have at fighting the appalling Tyranid menace. Interestingly, it looks in Warhammer 40k lore right now that Guilliman is going to pull back from the Fourth Tyrannic War because he has to go and deal with the Silent King. The Hive Mind is going to be a little bit stumped here. It is unlikely to get its goal of drawing out Guilliman to kill him, but it has now discovered that there is a second Primarch, and that Primarch is Lionel Jonson. Now the Lion is on the other side of the Great Rift, however, there are remnants of Hive Fleet Leviathan in Imperium Nihilus left over from the incursion that nearly destroyed Baal. So logically I'm expecting the Hive Mind to respond in a similar way, and perhaps we'll see the Lion take on a Norn emissary. These giant bugs are not to be underestimated even for the Monster Slayer of Caliban. At the beginning of the Fourth Tyrannic War, we see one Norn emissary handle multiple custodians all by itself. Additionally, we are in a bit of a weird situation now, as the Hive Mind knows that Lionel Jonson has returned before Roboute Guilliman. Perhaps this war will somehow be the thing that reunites these two brothers. Everything is kicking off in the Imperium right now, and I cannot wait to see what they do with this story. Let me know in the comments, how do you think it's going to go down? Thank you so much for watching this video. If you do enjoy this content, please do consider supporting the channel. That also gives you access to the Discord and extra content. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.